great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. So here is what your financial advisor is probably not going to tell you. By the time the news says to buy gold, it's already too late. You're waiting. I get it. Everybody's waiting to see if the ceasefire holds, waiting to see if the strait reopens, waiting to see just kind of what happens next. But the thing about it is, gold is not waiting for you because gold moves on fear, on instability, on the unknown. And it moves a lot faster than you can react. So while you're waiting for certainty, the rest of the world is planning for what comes next. So you can wait or you can prepare, but you can't do both. And remember, the best time to put on a seatbelt is before the accident happens, not after. So if you're finally ready to act, then it's time to reach out to Noble Gold Investments. They help Americans just like you protect their savings with physical gold and silver. It can get shipped right to your door, or they can hold it in a tax-advantaged IRA. No taxes, no penalties, no rollover fees on 401ks or an existing IRA. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78 and get your free investor kit today. 5 minutes today could protect decades of savings. Once again, noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78. Don't be the one still waiting. And when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Hello to those over there on YouTube who are unable to hear my introduction where I talk about what we're going to be discussing today. We are going to be talking, I think, during the main event about the efforts to fix the racially districted, gerrymandered congressional district maps around the country. We've got some wins, we've got some setbacks, but we are still fighting, and that is what's important. Nobody said it was going to be easy. Nobody said they were going to allow us to simply take back our country, but hell, we have certainly done our best, I would suggest. All right, now, I would like to open today with a story that sounds surprisingly similar to a story that we just covered in California. In California, there was a natural disaster of some type that took place at a chemical production factory where a containment vessel had apparently cracked, and there was a dangerous possibility of this chemical containment vessel exploding. Now, it seems like that's gotten under control, but unfortunately, there's a sort of a similar incident that appears to have taken place this time in Washington. And so it kind of just made me wonder, are we looking at simply similar but disconnected events taking place on the Western Seaboard, or are these potentially not yet identified attacks on critical U.S. infrastructure? So in this particular incident, this was a much more tragic event because several people have been killed, and there was a major chemical explosion. This time, it was at a paper mill in Washington State, and it took place this morning. Now, I don't know if we have any residents of Washington, perhaps anybody who may have been near to this paper factory. But if you have anything that you want to share in the chat, I would certainly encourage you to do so. Now, this was a tank that contained white liquor, and it exploded at the Nippon Dynawave Packaging Company in Longview. The factory produces dry market pulp that becomes printing paper, tissue, pet pads, filtration paper, and more. That's from the company's website. I guess in addition to the people who were killed, there was at least 9 people who were injured. That includes at least 1 firefighter. We don't know exactly how many people are dead at this point. That is apparently how bad this is. There's also still an unknown number of people who are missing. So everything is currently in flux. But the original report said that a chemical tank ruptured at a facility in Washington State, resulting in multiple critical injuries and an unknown number of fatalities. This was, again, similar to California because it's a hazardous materials incident reported this morning at Nippon Dynawave Packaging, a pulp and paper mill in Longview, Washington. A tank containing this white liquor ruptured early this morning at 7:15 a.m., and authorities initially referred to the incident just as a chemical explosion and then as an implosion, before eventually referring to it as a rupture. Now, all 3 of those things are very different, and we still apparently don't know exactly why this took place. But now they're saying that the situation is stable. They're in the midst of recovering what information they can and obviously trying to determine exactly how many people have lost their lives. So this is a recovery and rescue operation at this time. Let's go ahead and take a look at this report, which is apparently from ABC News.
And an update to breaking news we've been covering out of Washington State this afternoon. That is where an implosion at a packaging plant has left multiple people dead and others critically injured. And this is all happening at the Nippon Dynawave Packing Plant in Longview, Washington. That is near the Oregon border. Officials saying a tank containing white liquor ruptured. That's a highly corrosive substance used in making paper and pulp, and it's extremely dangerous to human skin. Officials are calling it a mass casualty event, saying several people are hospitalized with burns and traumatic injuries. Officials also saying that there is no immediate threat to the surrounding community.
Okay, so the fact that there's no immediate threat to the surrounding community is much better news than I was thinking we were going to get. I do see a comment over here from Sally Maynor on YouTube, and she says something similar happened in Maine a week ago, a lumberyard explosion, and she believes 6 people died. I hadn't heard about that. And again, you know, my speculation about possible sabotage is merely that. We don't have any information specifically to suggest that that's what's happening. But, you know, once is coincidence, twice is happenstance, 3 times is a pattern. Let's go ahead and take a look about this explosion in Maine, because that would make it 3 explosions of a similar type. Let me see. Maine lumberyard explosion. And it would, oh my goodness. Ooh, let's take a look.
This pod will clean your retainer at the touch of a button. No more brushing or chemicals.
From officials on.
Let me make this full screen and turn down the volume just a little bit because that's loud.
The deadly fire and explosion at Robbins Lumber in Searsmont.
We are learning more on what investigators say caused that fire. John Chrysos joins us now. These details just coming into our newsroom, John.
Kathleen, just coming in just less than 10 minutes ago, investigators here saying that fire and explosion at the lumber mill appears to have been accidental. The state fire marshal's office and ATF wrapping up that initial on-scene investigation after working through Memorial Day weekend, they say. So we'll walk you through it here. Officials believe that fire started near the unloader mechanism right there at the base of the silo. That is where we know they've been focusing this investigation, bringing that equipment in. They told us earlier, trying to get it under the silo. As they look at the results of that investigation, they say before crews at the time of that fire could fully contain the smoldering fire, suspended sawdust and other material rapidly ignited, causing the explosion inside that silo. Investigators say the silo then actually lifted from its base, released more sawdust, then toppled over as fire spread quickly to the nearby buildings in the mill complex. The video here from the scene at the time of the fire. So this investigation, they say, does remain active. Officials plan on some additional testing of that unloader system coming up in the coming months. For now, Kathleen.
All right, so not unheard of for a sawmill with lots of explosive and flammable debris that's going to be around. You know, this seems to me like it likely is due to perhaps maybe some laziness. Certainly it is accidental. Doesn't necessarily seem as if it's intentional. But these events in California and Washington, I think, are still up in the air. You know, it just reminds me of all of those incidents that we had during the Biden administration when out of nowhere, suddenly chicken farms and egg farms and you know, food processing plants just started burning down out of nowhere. You're never going to convince me that that was just a series of unrelated events. All right. Now, I would like to also bring you back to a story that we first covered yesterday. President Trump and the administration's efforts to reform the green card system. Now, if you are a person who is here on a visa, or you're applying for citizenship, or otherwise are not a citizen and you want to become a citizen, in order to finalize the process to become a citizen, you now have to leave the country. You have to go back to your country of origin to finalize that process, because it has to be done through the embassy in your home country. That means that people no longer just get a free ride. You don't just get to come here and wait for years to see if the United States is going to bestow citizenship upon you. And it also is going to make it a little bit more difficult. Now, we have a couple of key updates to exactly what is going to happen during that final stage. The U.S. government is now going to be asking you some key questions. It's staggering to me that they weren't asking these questions before, but this is about making sure that the people we allow to come into our country are not the same type of garbage that has been allowed to come into our country up until this point. So take a listen.
For non-citizens living in Minnesota and elsewhere, getting a green card, becoming a lawful permanent resident, may have gotten just a little bit harder.
What is this going to mean for a lot of folks who are trying to just stay in the United States?
It is a potentially seismic shift in how this process is done.
Boom!
That new memo by the Trump administration requires foreigners who want a green card to leave and apply in their home country. Formerly, applicants could do that in the U.S. Legal experts say the change could have a big impact on the 10,000 to 15,000 people in Minnesota seeking green cards.
At every floor, at every stage, they're tightening up everything. They're turning over old legal rocks that haven't been looked under in 40 years.
U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services says non-immigrants like students, temporary workers, or those with tourist visas come to the U.S. for a short time and a specific purpose. The agency says, quote, "Our system is designed for them to leave when their visit is over. Their visit should not function as the first step in the green card process."
What's different about this now? What's the change?
Immigration law professor Anna Patratz-Acosta says essentially it's a tightening of the rules. In some cases, U.S. CIS officers might allow interviews here. But she says there is a litmus test.
Have you not committed any crimes? Have you paid your taxes? Are you generally a good person and you're not going to be a burden on the country?
That right there is what excites me the most. Be careful. Get ready. going nuclear on allowing people to simply come to our country and never leave. That is not the way it works anymore. Have you paid your taxes? Are you following the laws? Are you a drain on society? Think about all of those Somalians. Never would have been allowed to stay in our country. They would have had to go back to Somalia. Well, anyways, from here on out, it is a very, very different ball game. I'm very happy to hear that. Not only is the administration tightening the rules on those who are seeking to gain access to our country and get a green card, the DHS is also taking steps to go after immigration lawyers who file frivolous claims and who assist these people in remaining in our country when they shouldn't. What we have here is a brand new bulletin from the Department of Homeland Security just released early this morning, and it is specific guidance on immigration attorneys and how we are now going to deal with them. So the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is releasing this new directive. It instructs U.S. Customs Immigration Enforcement to take additional steps to crack down on fraudulent asylum claims, of which, as you know, there are many. So DHS has instructed ICE to develop anti-fraud policies that will further enforce 8 U.S.C. 1324C. It's a law that establishes penalties for violations of document fraud. As a result of this directive just delivered today by Secretary of Homeland Security Mark Wayne Mullen, ICE attorneys have greater authority to enforce this law, including enforcement actions against immigration attorneys who file false asylum claims in an immigration court. So DHS General Counsel James Percival says, for many years, millions of illegal aliens have committed fraud in our immigration system. No place is more rampant than in immigration court. Protection claims like asylum are intended to cover unique and narrow circumstances, but it is standard practice for immigration attorneys representing illegal aliens to assert that virtually every illegal alien is going to be persecuted or tortured in his or her home country. Historically, ICE has depended on the discipline of immigration judges and the enforcement of criminal fraud laws to deter this conduct, but ICE has its own tools. Now, thanks to this directive, ICE attorneys have greater authority to enforce the law and stop the abuse of our asylum system by illegal aliens and their attorneys. Now, this action reaffirms President Donald J. Trump's commitment to restoring integrity to our immigration system. In March of 2025, President Trump issued a memorandum pointing out that the immigration bar and powerful big law pro bono practices frequently coach clients to conceal their past or lie about their circumstances when asserting their asylum claims, all in an attempt to circumvent immigration policies enacted to protect our national security and deceive the immigration authorities and courts into granting them undeserved relief. Well, that isn't going to happen anymore, because these immigration attorneys are now subject to criminal prosecution. I believe that they can have their law licenses stripped from them. They can, of course, be fined lots and lots of money. I look forward to seeing exactly how this plays out, because undoubtedly there's a huge swath of the legal profession who makes their living simply by filing false immigration asylum claims. And then they probably get paid by the same 501c3s that are now under investigation by the Office of the Foreign Asset Control at the Treasury and the DOJ and the FBI and all of that. We'll continue to follow this to see where it goes. Tricia says, check your email for a picture of Tina I thought you might like. Okay, let me just do a quick refresh. Okay. Oh, yes, I saw this earlier. Tina was waving from the jail. She's not out yet, but she is looking like she will be out on the 1st. Hold on, I just need to fix this so that you guys can see it. Yep, here she is, waving hello, throwing kisses from the jail cell, or from somewhere in the jail. I don't exactly know what portion of the jail she's in, but yeah, that's her just showing people she's happy and healthy. So yes, looking forward to June 1st so that we can remove Tina from the screen right here. Once again, if you're new here or if you didn't here when I put this up there. This is the Tina Peters release watch official image, just as I had the Don Lemon arrest watch official image. Once Don Lemon was indicted and arrested, I took him off. And now that Tina Peters is set to be released, we're going to be removing her as soon as we can. Hogleg71, thank you for the cookie in the can, my friend. I really do appreciate you. All right. Now, we are going to talk about a story that I haven't talked about yet, but it was everywhere. Lots of people were very interested to know what was going on with this situation. Let me say thank you to 76 Patriot Girl who says, hey, Zach, any idea what's going on at Camp David tomorrow? Oh, yeah. I'm certain it's going to be something related to the Iran situation. Camp David tends to be a place where the president will, it's very secure. President will do like wargaming there if there is a major operation taking place. There was just a response by the U.S. military on Iranian IRGC sites. We sent some missiles and took some people out. And that's because the Iranians, or a portion of the Iranian military that doesn't want to give up, was setting mines in the Straits of Hormuz. So if I had to guess, I would say that it's more than likely something to do with the situation in Iran. All right. Now, over the weekend, or I guess late last week, there was this sort of viral clip that went around with this guy that you see on screen right here. He's Vice Admiral Robert Harward. So you can see in these two images, Robert Harward is in two different locations giving interviews on two different days. It looks like slightly he has the same outfit on. Certainly it seems like it's the same sport coat. But as somebody who works in a studio all the time, I can tell you that you can achieve some pretty dramatic things with lighting and makeup. And your setting is going to make a big difference. This is why I didn't report on this the other day, because I thought it was just a big nothing burger. But anyways, a lot of people were saying because of this shadow that you had on his neck, that it meant that he was wearing a mask. And I didn't believe that, because again, my experience working in the studio, I know that you are going to get some, sometimes weird things going on. So anyways, there were so many people talking about it that Fox News actually came and commented on it, which I thought was kind of funny. People were saying that Robert Harward was wearing this full face mask. I believe it was a shadow. I still believe it was a shadow. He's a retired U.S. Navy Vice Admiral, decorated Navy SEAL. He served as the Deputy Command of U.S. CENTCOM, and he's led special operations in multiple theaters around the world. He speaks Farsi, and he lived in Tehran as a teenager. So you can see why they'd have him come on to talk about this stuff. So anyways, Harward showed up in the studio. Let's go ahead. I'll show you the clip. And here is the clip that made everybody lose their minds.
In the eyes of the Iranian people, but the
And I just realized YouTube couldn't hear me. So you've got this hard black line on his neck. People were saying it was a mask.
world global economy, which they're holding all hostage to, the more everybody comes to realize this is all about the IRGC. At the end of the day, we're going to have to need a government in Iran that not only hands over the nuclear material, stops threatening the Straits of Hormuz, but quits exporting the Islamic Revolution throughout the region, causing the collapse of Lebanon, Gaza, Yemen, Syria, and as well as...
Okay, so again, I believe that was a shadow. I don't believe that was a mask. And I would ask the question, if it was a mask, why would they need to put this guy in a mask? Why would they need to pretend to have it be the admiral? Why wouldn't they just get somebody else who knows about Iran to come on and talk about it? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So, anyways, Fox News replied, and they said that it was a shadow. That's really it. So because you've got different locations where you're going to be doing shoots, you're going to have different positions for lights. Okay, so I've got 2 lights up here at like 45-degree angle from my face so that I get a full bathe of light across my face from both angles, and so it minimizes shadow. Depending on where you are, you might not be able to go up high. You might have to have lights that are like right here. There's also fill lights that they have that come up from the bottom on either side. So really, that's it. I just don't see why they would put this guy in a mask. You know, that's really it. Anyway. Now, we also have an announcement about a promotion taking place within the Trump administration. Hold on, you guys. I got to turn the air on. I realized I turned it off earlier when I was hanging out with the dogs because it is way hotter in my studio. 78 degrees right now. Can't believe I'm not sweating. Way hotter in the studio than it is in the rest of the house. Okay, so let's kick it down to 70 as quick as possible. All right, so Michael Needham is currently a State Department counselor. He's also a former Heritage Action Chief, and he's a longtime Marco Rubio aide. He's going to be moving into a top post at the Trump White House in the national security space. He's going to be taking the post of Assistant to the President and Deputy National Security Advisor. Now, this is a big role within this sector. It carries a lot of weight, and it's specifically going to be dealing with foreign policy issues related to Iran, China, Cuba, and Venezuela. The statement from Marco Rubio stated that Mike has been a key player in delivering President Trump's overwhelming foreign policy successes. In his new role as Deputy National Security Advisor, Mike will continue to implement President Trump's America First agenda and build upon the historic record of the National Security Council under President Trump. So he steps into the slot that's going to be vacated by Robert Gabriel. A White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, described Gabriel last week as a trusted confidant and dear friend to me and his White House colleagues. Needham ran Rubio's Senate office as chief of staff for 6 years, and he also previously served as chief executive officer of the Heritage Action for America, which is part of the Heritage Foundation. He has held the counselor post since January of last year, basically as soon as President Trump came into office, and then he became the director of the Secretary's policy planning staff in September of last year. So, much like Marco Rubio, he's going to be holding multiple roles. He's going to be a busy guy. This promotion follows the reshaping last year of the National Security Council. President Trump and the White House trimmed down the National Security Council staff. It was rife with deep state assets. They placed about 20 people on administrative leave, and they installed Vice President J.D. Vance's National Security Advisor Andy Baker and Robert Gabriel as deputies. Now, Needham has very strong ties with J.D. Vance's team. Everybody likes Mike, it's been said. He gets the policy, he gets the politics, and he also took part in Marco Rubio's recent efforts to convene direct negotiations between Israel and Lebanon, which are the first in decades. Unfortunately, Israel has just announced that they are going to continue bombing Lebanon. So we'll see how that affects the peace negotiations with Iran. Needham's exit triggers a chain of events, and so a number of people are going to have to move around at the State Department. Dan Holler is Marco Rubio's chief of staff. He's going to be coming in to Needham's position as counselor, and then also step in as acting director of policy planning. And Matt Rhodes, who is currently chief of staff to the counselor, is going to replace Holler. So you just got a chain reaction that's going to be taking place. I think this is a good move. Everything I know about this guy is that he is loyal to the president, and that's the only thing I care. Okay, now before we get into the conversation about a series of court decisions that are alternatingly going to excite and then enrage you, I do have a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. All right, as you all know, America is coming up on a major milestone. 250 years, guys. I can't believe this country has been around for 250 years. That is 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and quite literally the greatest country the world has ever seen. This is a perfect moment to help your kids and your grandkids understand just what it is about this country that matters. Why is it worth continuing the American experiment? There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday. It is truly a great way to show those kids how America began, who the founding fathers were, and what it was that led them to sign that Declaration of Independence. But most importantly, why those ideas are still important today. So this guide is going to send those kids back to the very moment they signed that Declaration of Independence, knowing full well that they were risking everything for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy, and it's going to do it without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. So if you care about raising kids that truly understand where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you're going to want to grab. The best part is it's completely free with this special offer. All you do is pay the $2 for shipping and handling. And to pick it up, you just go to freeusabirthday.com. That is freeusabirthday.com, and you can get the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday right there, because America's story matters, and we need to make sure that the next generation knows it. Thank you very much to Rumble and the good folks over there. Okay, so continuing here. The Supreme Court just handed down a decision which is good. It backs President Trump over speech limits on immigration judges. Now, one of the problems we've had since President Trump came in has been with judges of all types. Now, we've had a number of immigration judges be fired, and they have fought those firings. Of course, President Trump was victorious at the end of the day. We have had a lot of hirings of new immigration judges. These people are vital because they are quite literally the front line of deciding who gets to stay and for what reason. But the Supreme Court handed President Trump this win by reversing a lower court's ruling against a requirement that immigration judges seek approval before giving speeches in their official capacity. So that initial decision came out of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals last year. They intervened in light of President Trump's firing of several agency heads that were responsible for hearing complaints. So the policy stems from the Executive Office for Immigration Review. They oversee about 750 immigration judges. Now, the justices did not rule on the merits of the case, but they merely reversed that lower court's decision and then sent it back for additional proceedings. So nevertheless, the decision is a win for President Trump. We have placed incredible scrutiny on these immigration judges. Their enforcement of the law is necessary if we are going to be successful in planning for mass deportations. But in order to get to the spot that we want to be at, we need to make sure that the people who are working on our team are truly working for our team. Let's see. Makes sense to me, too, says, did you see Rise of Tire memes of the DNI being taken over by Marco Rubio? I did. I saw that over the weekend, and I saw that some people were upset by that. I don't understand why people were upset. I mean, it's not making fun of Tulsi Gabbard or anything like that. It's a popular meme that has been used every single time Marco Rubio has to take on a new role within the administration. So, yeah, I think this is hilarious. And I think that Marco's a great sport about it, too, because he's been totally cool. All right, let me say thank you to 123SKG for the can. Let me say thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. And let me say thank you to my brother from another mother, Enoch, who says, new coincidences graphic whipped up. Let me go ahead and pull this up real quick before we jump into the next set of cases we're going to take a look at. All right. Do you believe in coincidence? Trump averages about 18 posts a day on Truth Social. That's less than 0.5% of his posts are Q-related memes and slogans. Only 0.6% of Q posts are signed with Q+. Yet today he dropped 2 Q+ memes just minutes apart. Trump is thought, of course, to be actually Q+. So odds of that happening in a 10-minute window are 1 in 500,000 to 1.2.8 million. Do you believe in coincidences? And here are the posts. He's very fond of sharing these memes from Spiritual Street Fighter. And we've got this one right here. Stay with me, deplorables. You'll love how this movie ends. I remember that one, of course. And then right here, President Trump's Spiritual Street Fighter post. Game over, Deep State. I love it. Thank you for that, Enoch. Appreciate you, brother. Let me go ahead and share that or save that one for later. Appreciate you. 123 SKG, thank you for the can. All right, now, another big win for President Trump and the administration. We have a unanimous Month Circuit panel that is now holding a decision made by Lee Zeldin. This is important. I'm sure you'll remember when the administration came in, Lee Zeldin determined that there were billions of dollars in grants that were sort of handed out like a fire sale at the end of the Biden administration, and Lee Zeldin attempted to cancel those grants and claw that money back. That decision was, of course, fought in court. That was nearly a year ago, maybe even more than a year ago at this point. But now the decision handed down by the court is that Lee Zeldin can use form notices to end these grants. At least the terminated grantees now cannot sue in federal court. This is a decision that was shockingly handed down by a Clinton judge, an Obama judge, and a Biden judge. Absolutely stunning. So Judge Christian writes separately as to another theoretical underpinning for why the federal government wins, why they can cancel grants if they want to. This is a heavyweight argument with Dean Erwin Churaminsky up against Andrew Shoemate's Deputy Roth. Hopefully, this will help curtail errant district court filings. So he says, I fully concur in the court's per curiam opinion and write separately only because I view it as incomplete in regard to one important aspect. As to the Tucker Act, plaintiffs repeatedly argued that the district court had jurisdiction over the form termination class's APA claim because the Court of Federal Claims lacks jurisdiction to adjudicate claims brought by parties who, like the plaintiffs, are not in privity of contract with the government. Indeed, this was the sole grounds on which plaintiffs sought to distinguish the Supreme Court's order in National Institutes of Health versus the American Public Health Association. The per curiam opinion rejects this argument, relying on the strong factual similarities between this case and NIH. Critically, the per curiam opinion does not explain the legal error at the court of the plaintiff's position, which, in my view, is that the identity of the party bringing a claim is immaterial to whether the claim is contractual in nature. Our adversarial system assigns to courts the role of neutral arbiter on matters that parties present. Greenlaw versus United States, just as we are duty-bound to decide only questions presented by the parties, we are obliged to answer the questions the parties present. So, very interesting. The opinion also affirms the injunction as to anti-DEA grants. I'm not quite sure that's right, but there is more to the opinion. Oh, and apparently it's the Ninth Circuit, not the Month Circuit, the Ninth Circuit of the United States. Okay, so this case in early 2025, 3 federal agencies terminated research grants en masse via form letters pursuant to certain executive orders issued by the president. 6 researchers at the University of California who had their research grants terminated filed suit against the government on behalf of a class of similarly situated UC researchers, raising constitutional and statutory claims. So the district court issued a preliminary injunction on behalf of 2 provisional classes, ordering the agencies to reinstate the terminated grants. The government appeals, we affirm in part and reverse in part and remand. So the plaintiffs are those 6 UC researchers who applied for and received multi-year research grants from 3 federal agencies, which were the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Science Foundation, and the National Endowment for Humanities. One of the professors at Berkeley who received NEH funding was part of it. Then you had a climate policy researcher. Then you had a Berkeley Law School professor, another one who's a physician, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, if the government doesn't want to continue giving you free money, they no longer have to continue giving you free money, and that's just something you're going to have to deal with. So very happy to see that. All right, now also, this one is one of those ones that might enrage you a little bit. The Supreme Court of the United States has unfortunately rejected a lawsuit brought by my Attorney General and the state of Florida against the states of California and Washington. That was filed because those states were giving CDL driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. And the policy of allowing that has led to the deaths of Americans all over the country. But the state of Florida was suing because we have lost people specifically down here. This was brought by Attorney General James Uthmeier after that deadly crash, which literally happened in my backyard, where a commercial truck driver, Harjinder Singh, an Indian national and an illegal alien, did a U-turn on 95 and, like a total moron, ended up leading to the death of a family. We had 3 people who died in that crash. The irony is that they were legal immigrants. They were legal immigrants, and they were killed after having gone through the process to become citizens of the United States of America. They were killed by an illegal immigrant. So Singh is facing a variety of criminal charges, which includes vehicular homicide and immigration violations. Florida alleged that California and Washington are violating federal law, which they are, and endangering public safety, which they are, by issuing these CDLs to individuals without legal immigration status and then allowing them to drive across state lines. Now, the court declined to hear the case, and they made no comment, so they haven't given us any clue as to why they don't want to hear this. But Justice Clarence Thomas was the dissent, and he was joined by fellow conservative Samuel Alito. This court declines to even hear Florida's claims, even though it has nowhere else to bring them. Now, he's right, because the law is that if a state has a claim against another state, it has to be brought through the Supreme Court of the United States. Florida filed this case directly with SCOTUS under its original jurisdiction for disputes between states. This is an avenue the court rarely accepts. The lawsuit said these 2 Democrat-led states' open defiance of federal immigration laws led to violations of federal safety rules. Florida argued this resulted in drivers obtaining licenses without proper training or the ability to read road signs, and that obviously creates risks for motorists not only in Florida but all over the freaking country. Iowa and 16 other states filed briefs in support of our position down here in Florida. The Washington Attorney General, Nicholas Brown, called the lawsuit a political stunt and not a real claim, but the legal challenge followed increased scrutiny over CDLs that were issued to non-residents and illegal aliens. Non-citizen drivers around the country are now beginning to lose those driver's licenses. But after the incident, the Trump administration threatened to withhold federal funding from California, Washington, New Mexico, unless they adopted English language requirements for these commercial truck drivers. And I believe that that is still happening, because for some crazy reason, they refuse to suggest that. Now, Clarence Thomas is right. We, the citizens of Florida, have no other remedy to have this issue addressed. And that means that as long as the states of California and Washington want to continue sending illegal aliens who don't speak English and who should not be on the road to our state to kill our residents, then there's nothing we can do. So the only thing that I can think of that perhaps James Uthmeier might want to consider is prosecuting individuals who work within the state governments of California and Florida. Perhaps, filing charges against those people. Clarence Thomas, he is a gem, you guys. I don't know what we're going to do when we lose him. He is probably the most brilliant and most knowledgeable, certainly the most based member of the Supreme Court. And he is not thinking about retiring, or at least, when people have suggested it, he has not stated that he has any interest in doing that. But that man is a national treasure. We need to clone him. I'm with you, Cyber. All right. Now, also, this is another one that may enrage you. So, the decision in this case is in open defiance of the recent Louisiana versus Calais decision brought down by the Supreme Court. This time, a panel of leftist federal judges are choosing to ignore that Calais decision, and they've actually ordered Alabama to reinstate their unconstitutionally, racially gerrymandered congressional map. So this panel of leftist judges has just said, you know what? Calais doesn't mean anything to us. And they have actually thrown out the new constitutional redistricting map today. This is a 3-judge panel that was looking at Alabama's redistricting case. They've issued this preliminary injunction which bars the state from switching the maps. It requires Alabama to continue using the 5-2 racially gerrymandered map that the court ordered for congressional elections back in 2024. The state had recently voted to reinstate their old map, which was 6-1 Republican. So this also means Democrats are going to regain an additional so-called black majority seat for now. But this is after the Supreme Court specifically made the decision that racially gerrymandered maps were unconstitutional. So this is not the last we're going to hear about this case. Undoubtedly, it will be appealed. So this case has been ongoing for quite some time. And at least for now, we are going to have to, in Alabama, switch back to that old map. Well, the map that these same leftist judges forced Alabama to adopt back in 2024. Lawyers representing black voters in the state's lengthy redistricting case had sought the preliminary injunction, arguing this was the same panel in 2023 who found the state map was intentionally discriminatory against black voters. They've also argued that Alabama was creating chaos by trying to change lines in the middle of an election year, or maybe change lanes in the middle of an election year. So the Supreme Court handed down a fairly clear and easy to understand decision. This is what gave Alabama the opportunity to throw out this currently rigged map. So the state filed an emergency appeal at the Supreme Court, asking the high court to allow it to toss out the map these leftist judges have just told them they must continue to use, because gerrymandered congressional maps that are based on racial characteristics are inherently unconstitutional. They were unconstitutional before, but after the decision in the Calais case, they are officially unconstitutional. So we will probably be hearing something about this very soon. An expedited case doesn't mean it's going to happen as quickly as people want it to, but it's going to happen quicker than it would otherwise. All right, now, we also have unfortunate news coming out of South Carolina. After the South Carolina House of Representatives had voted to adopt a new congressional map, which would get rid of the racially gerrymandered district that Representative Clyburn had sat in for, I believe, the last 35 years. In order to have it adopted, it also had to pass through the South Carolina Senate. Well, the Senate rhinos are now responsible for striking down, blocking that map from moving forward. So unfortunately, the South Carolina redistricting fight is now dead on arrival. Over the weekend, the South Carolina Senate advanced a 2026 redistricting map that eliminated this racially gerrymandered seat. But then earlier today, in a cloture vote to force debate in the South Carolina Senate, it failed. So I don't know much about South Carolina Senate Republicans, but I can tell you the names of the ones who voted to kill it, essentially. They actually cited the Democrat argument that early voting starts today. So what? So just because voting is supposed to start today, you can't postpone it a couple of days? You're going to force the citizens of South Carolina to exist within an unconstitutional system? Such bullshit. So these are the senators: Bennett, Campson, Cash, Cromer, Davis, Hembry, Johnson, Massey, Peeler, Rankin, Stubbs, and Zell. Now, President Trump last week said, watch South Carolina very closely. He said, I am watching, along with all Republicans across the country who are counting on their elected leaders to use every legal and constitutional authority they have to stop the radical left Democrats from destroying our country, including leveling the playing field against their decades of egregious gerrymandering and census rigging. South Carolina Republicans, be bold and courageous, just like the Republicans of the great state of Tennessee last week were. Move the U.S. House primaries to August. Leave the rest on the same schedule. Everything will be fine. Get it done. So earlier this week, you had a Rhino, Indiana state senator, number of them, who lost their primary elections because they refused to go forward with the redistricting. President Trump endorsed all those people, and the ones who voted against him lost. Of course, we also said goodbye to Rhino Senator Bill Cassidy, who lost his primary. Thomas Massie also lost his primary. And it looks like if anybody else is going to be putting up a fight in South Carolina, they are more than likely going to get primaried themselves. These people, if they don't understand what's at stake, if they don't understand how dire the situation is, then they do not deserve to hold elected office, and they need to be gotten gone. Now, good news out of Tennessee. Those courageous Republicans did the right thing, and a federal judge in Tennessee has just denied the attempt of leftists in the state to block the implementation of their new congressional map, which is 9 Republican, 0 Democrat. Now, this is a big win, so we need to continue to keep our eyes on Alabama. Doesn't look like South Carolina is going to have the opportunity to go forward, but I think that given the Calais decision, Alabama is going to move forward, and that map will be in place for the midterms. So Tennessee is now entirely red. That is very, very good news. Moving on. Same thing down here in my home state of Florida. Our 2026 redistricting map was just upheld by a court as well. Mark Elias was attempting to sue to get it overturned. That new map is 24 Republican, 4 Democrat, which means that, as I told you previously, Debbie Washing Machine Schultz is now going to be redistricted out of her seat. And you've got these areas
in the courts. So
you've got these areas in the southeastern portion of Florida, and then you've got one tiny little Democrat district up here. This actually isn't far from me. I don't know where this is, but that's not my district. Okay, so let's go ahead and hear from the court decision.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signing the state's new congressional map into law. Republicans say it could give them an extra 4 seats potentially in the House. DeSantis posting a photo of the new map with the message signed, sealed, and delivered. Sounds pretty confident on how that's going to shape up for Republicans. So we'll see where it goes. Florida Democrats call the redistricting illegal and say that they are threatening to fight it in the courts. So,
well, it is now law. Mark Elias fought and he lost. This is not the first time James Uthmeyer has beaten Mark Elias in the courts. So he's just going to have to cry this one out and go home to his mommy. We also have an update on a very, very sad set of circumstances that took place in Chicago this past weekend. Now, we've covered a number of these youth takeovers. They appear to be happening in urban areas all around the United States. Some of them are more violent than others. This one in Chicago was particularly violent because an 18-year-old youth used his vehicle to attempt to murder a crowd of police officers who were trying to shut down one of these violent youth street takeovers. Using his car, he rammed 5 police officers and just drove right through them. Now, he's been identified and he's been charged with attempted murder. Let's take a listen.
By the way, 22 people were shot in Chicago over Memorial Day weekend. But there's this teen takeover that happened on the west side, and an 18-year-old is charged with attempted murder after allegedly hitting 5 Chicago police officers while they were trying to disperse the crowds.
Yeah, watch some of that video of what you're talking about. Listen here, you can kind of hear the aftermath.
Oh my God, he just hit a lot of police officers. This car just ran through a whole crowd of Chicago police officers while we clearing out this block party. Oh my God. This dude right here just ran through a whole crowd of Chicago police officers. This is crazy, dude. Hey, everybody good?
You know why he ran through them? Because there's no respect for authority in Chicago. Ainsley, you and I were talking on air, and I've covered Chicago and many of these major blue cities for decades, for a decade now. Going on the ground, going to the community centers, trying to go the compassionate route, talking with the victims' families when they have been murdered in the middle of the street. There's no respect for authority.
There is Absolutely no respect for authority. It's the same thing you see when police approach someone who's clearly committing a crime. They happen to be black, and they refuse to comply in any meaningful way. And then they're just screaming, saying that they can't be arrested. They are refusing to do whatever the officer is telling them. 9 times out of 10, they're acting that way because they know that they're going to go to jail. And then they act all big and put on this show of bravado, like they don't care about going to jail. Well, you really should. You really should care about going to jail, because jail is not fun. When you go to jail, bad things happen, and it can screw up your entire life. So if your intention is to live the rest of your life as a criminal, well, I guess I don't know what to tell you. And your parents failed. Your parents have failed you in every meaningful way. This is the type of shit we cannot afford to allow to keep happening. And as long as kids are taught to have zero respect, to not care about their communities, to think that it's cool to do these things, you know, it's going to continue happening. And this guy deserves to go to prison for the rest of his life. Now, of course, it is Illinois. It's Chicago, so I don't know how much time he's actually going to get for attempting to murder 5 cops. They might charge him with attempted murder of a lot more than 5 cops, because those are just the 5 that he hit. There was a crowd of police. So, I mean, theoretically, they could count all of the police that were in the vicinity of his car as he was driving towards them. I think that might be a good idea. Show him that crime doesn't pay. All right. Thank you so much to Moonbaby, who says, thank you for delivering the news to us. I appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you so much, Moonbaby. I appreciate you. Darla, good to see you, hun. She says, good afternoon, Zach and Lisa. Again, thank you for being here on Monday. I see Gateway Pundit printed an article saying JD will not seek 2028 presidential re-election. Any thoughts? So that came from a report that originated in the Daily Mail. And it was a totally anonymous report. It was basically somebody who supposedly knows has suggested that J.D. Vance might not run for president in 2028 because he doesn't want the baggage of the Trump administration. I personally think it's fake news, and it's just why I didn't cover it. I didn't actually see Gateway Pundit cover it. That's crazy to me that they would even go and reprint that. But yeah, there's no source. You know, J.D. Vance has not come out and said that he's not going to run. If he does want to run for president, then, I mean, to run in 2028, that's the play. You know, I mean, like, we do have some news on J.D. Vance, but it's in regards to the fraud task force and some new announcements that came out of that. So I appreciate the question, Darla, but no, I think it's probably fake news. No thanks, Joe says, thank you, Lisa and Zach. I hope you had a nice long weekend. Looking forward to continued new info coming out in your reporting of it. God bless, be safe. God bless you, my friend, and be safe as well. Thank you to Sean Joe, brother from another mother. Appreciate the cookie. Filter Dog, thank you for the can. The floor is yours. Says, this is why Jeanine Pirro made the curfew in D.C. and fine and prosecuting parents. Now this needs to spread to the rest of those around the country. I 100% agree with you, and I think that her choice to do that in D.C. is going to make a difference. Again, teaching that your actions have consequences. But it's unfortunate. Chicago is a hellhole at this point. So I doubt that the prosecutors are going to do that there. Eric Super Patriot, thank you for the can. Filter Dog, thank you for the cookie. President Trump has canceled the cabinet meeting at Camp David tomorrow, citing weather. He'll instead be holding the meeting at the White House. Okay, cool. Thank you for the update. Also, thank you to Jixer Trixer for gifting a subscription to AOB22 over on Rumble. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that AOB appreciates it as well. All right. Next. We do have a new report, which is a shocking admission of guilt coming from a former top advisor to Merrick Garland. We've heard from a couple of different people who were working inside the Biden administration. Certainly, previously, we had reports from FBI agents who were raising alarm bells about the illegal nature of the planned operation to search Mar-a-Lago. Well, apparently, one of the top lieutenants at the Department of Justice, a lawyer working inside the Biden Justice Department directly under Merrick Garland, believed the exact same thing. Her name is Patty Stemler. She was a longtime DOJ official chosen by Garland to consult on lawfare cases against President Trump. Now, she actually sent an email warning about the legal issues that were inevitably going to arise from the planned raid on Mar-a-Lago. Now, the previous information we got was that the the FBI, which is a subset of the DOJ, found no probable cause to raid Mar-a-Lago back in August of 2022. But the DOJ from Joe Biden's organization sent machine gun toting agents into President Trump's home anyways. Now, that Biden FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago in 2022, they seized boxes of records from President Trump's Florida estate. They faked that image of all of that supposed classified information just laying around on the floor. There was more than 36 agents with machine guns who descended on Mar-a-Lago in August of 2022. It was November where Biden's DOJ appointed a special counsel to investigate the documents that were stored at President Trump's Florida residence. Of course, the raid came after the National Archives had visited Mar-a-Lago in early 2022, and those court documents revealed that the FBI under Biden authorized the use of deadly force during that raid at Mar-a-Lago, which was authorized by U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, and it was also authorized by then resident of the White House, Joseph Robinette Biden. Here is that famous image that I mentioned just a moment ago. Corrupt FBI agents staged these photos of these classified documents, laying them out on the floor and attempting to make it look as if President Trump was sloppy and did not mind having this classified information just laying around. I'm sure you guys remember going back then, they were spreading all kinds of rumors in the mainstream media. Oh my God, President Trump had let somebody take classified information about Iran or about weapons that we had. None of that shit was ever true. Everything that President Trump had there at the White House, he personally had declassified. It was all related to Spygate. It was all related to the grand conspiracy. Patty Stemler warned the Biden administration lawyers that this raid was illegal. She said, "I didn't know about this search in advance, but I have been worrying about it ever since, and I worry more now." She wrote this email to the Biden White House lawyer, Sophia Brill, on August 10th, 2022. This is a memo that was recently given to Just the News. Doesn't Trump maintain that he had the authority to declassify documents while he was still president? Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. That was the assertion from the very beginning. And it's exactly why I said at the time that there was no way any of this was going to stick. Has anyone in NSD or OLC, which is the Office of Legal Counsel, looked at that? I know we have some procedures for declassifying, but is the president, as commander-in-chief, bound by those procedures? We also have procedures for granting pardons, but the president doesn't have to follow them, she said. Stunning admission from Joe Biden's own Justice Department. Patty was no slouch either. She worked at the DOJ for decades, and Garland picked her for a reason. So when she had concerns, those concerns should have been listened to by Merrick Garland and others within the DOJ. Well, that's if they wanted to follow the law or if they cared about what they were actually doing and the consequences that might come down as a result. But as we know, the fact of the matter is they didn't care about policy. They didn't care about legality. They didn't care about President Trump's ability to declassify documents. All they cared about was getting Trump. It's like that meme of the woman saying, "We'll get Trump this year. We'll get Trump this year. We'll get Trump this year." 40, 50 years in the future, we're finally going to get Trump after all of this. But they failed. They failed, and they were not successful. And as a result, here we are. And this is why, again, it is so vitally important that the grand conspiracy grand jury fully bring each and every one of these people and hold them accountable. The president is aware of this. His team is aware of this. The reason you're not hearing about it yet is simply because it's not done. But that doesn't mean it's not going to get done. All right. Let me say thank you so much to B4U2C, who gifted a subscription to Ray Carr. What's up? Good. Thank you very much for that. Also, the Nun Report has rated the stream. Nun Report, sir, you are a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you very much for that. All right. Now, also over the weekend, we had the announcement that the DOJ was finally dismissing those seditious conspiracy charges against the Oath Keepers. And it turns out that it's because the convictions of the Oath Keepers were built upon shoddy legal work. They had suppressed evidence that is called Brady material. There was also perjury that had to be committed in order to even convict these people. This is a major win for the efforts of President Trump to right the wrongs of past DOJ and FBI actions. The weaponization of the Justice Department was an egregious, horrible, terrible thing that happened to these people. Each and every one of these people are now no longer going to be considered criminals. This also includes, of course, people like Joe Biggs and many others. Now, Joe Biggs is going to make him and anybody else who was a veteran, Stuart Rhodes, it's going to make it so that they can get their benefits back, that they can go back to the VA. They are no longer going to have to survive working, menial jobs when otherwise, they would not have to. Anyways, fully restoring the rights of each and every one of these people. I believe that this girl is the one that they blamed with stealing Nancy Pelosi's laptop, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, the motion was filed on Friday night, May 22nd, and the judge was asked to dismiss with prejudice all of the underlying indictments against the 8 innocent Oath Keeper defendants whose sentences were already commuted but not pardoned. So this tells you why President Trump did not give these people a pardon, because ideally they were hoping to have these sentences dismissed, which means that none of them should have been charged in the first place, and certainly they should not have been convicted. They were released from prison on inauguration night. Some of them were held back, but, not out of this group. There were 4 Proud Boys leaders, likewise, who had their sentences commuted rather than pardoned. They were also released from prison. On May 21st this year, the D.C. Court of Appeals granted the DOJ's earlier request to vacate those convictions and remand the cases back to district court. With the appeals court order in hand, the DOJ has now fully moved to dismiss those cases. This mirrors the recent D.C. Court of Appeals order, which vacated the convictions of the remaining Proud Boys and remanding their cases to trial court for consideration of a DOJ motion to dismiss. Of course, every single one of them is now going to be eligible to receive a settlement from the weaponization fund. And this is really going to piss off people like Tom Tillis and all of those rhinos in the Senate. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you,
We don't care.
We don't care. Now, among these 8 Americans who are no longer felons, who have clean records, their Second Amendment rights and their civil rights are fully restored. You've got 4 service-connected disabled military veterans who are in this group. Again, they are going to get their critical VA benefits back. They lost all of them when they became convicted felons. I don't know if they're going to get anything as a sort of if they're going to receive their benefits that they should have been receiving during that time. That would be the way to go, I think. But 3 of the 4 commuted Proud Boys, Joe Biggs, Zachary Rell, and Dominic Pizzola, they're also veterans who lost their VA benefits, again, also being restored. So now all 12 of the remaining J6ers who were commuted rather than pardoned are having their rights restored. So very, very happy to be able to announce this. And it's worth mentioning that none of these people, men or women, were accused of assaulting police on January 6th, but these are the ones who were hit with the hardest sentences out of virtually everybody because they were Oath Keepers. People in authority apparently don't like the idea of those who take their oath to protect and defend the Constitution seriously. Even people who consider themselves to be critics of the Oath Keepers, if they're sitting in government, they're also an Oath Keeper, theoretically. I mean, they should be, because they've taken an oath. They should be upholding that oath, but all too often these people don't. So very, very good news to hear this. And I think that takes care of all of the January 6th cases. So good news for them. And hold on just a second. I think something might have happened with my Rumble studio. Maybe not. Okay, maybe we're all good. All right. Let's also check in now with J.D. Vance's and the Justice Department's fraud task force. So he held a roundtable today, which was designed to be a meeting between the fraud task force and the attorneys general of every state. 50 states, 50 attorney generals. Obviously, there is no state where crime doesn't exist. But unfortunately, not a single Democrat attorney general showed up. This is not a political issue. It should not be a political issue, but they have made it a political issue. Take a listen.
Representatives from the attorney generals in Connecticut and Oregon. And as I've said repeatedly, this should not be a partisan effort. Everybody should care about fraud. Everybody should care about rooting out fraud. Everybody should care about saving the American taxpayers' money. And importantly, everybody should care about actually protecting the programs that only work and are only properly funded if the money funding those programs isn't being stolen by fraudsters. So let me just recap for representatives from the Attorney General.
Yeah, so there really is no excuse for these people not showing up. I don't know if they think that they're just going to continue to allow fraud to happen in their states, but maybe it's because those attorney generals are aware of their own guilt as it pertains to the fraud taking place. I don't know. Certainly in Minnesota, I think that's the case. And since we're working with the fraud task force, I think we should hear from one of my guys in the administration, Stephen Miller, talking about those Somali migrants.
All of the systems in our country, whether you're talking about voting, whether you're talking about entitlements, whether you're talking about welfare benefits, were set up based on the honor system. They're set up based on the idea that you could trust the average person through their own morality to abide by the rules and comply with the law. And so the way most welfare works in most states and most places is we take your word for it. If you fill out a piece of paper and you say your kids are hungry, you are going to get food stamps. We don't check as a country if you even have kids. The fact is basic as that. We don't even check if you even have children. You will just start getting the checks. And so what's happened to our country is we became a society, as we've seen with the Somali refugee problem in Minnesota, where you have a large number of people that are not following the honor system. They're not playing by the rules. They're not abiding by our laws. And the amount that has been fleeced from us is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. I believe, based on what I've seen and what I've heard, is that we could balance the federal budget if the only dollars that went out of the Treasury went to individuals who were properly, lawfully, correctly eligible to receive them. And that ultimately is going to be what we have to do as a country. In the meantime, because of the Vice President's leadership, you are seeing the most muscular, robust, aggressive, dedicated, determined, and speedy effort to shut down criminal fraud that has not only ever occurred in the history of this country, but in any developed nation.
This is, as I have said previously, an unprecedented action taking place within the Department of Justice. The focus on fraud that we are seeing has never been done before, not only in our country, but I think in any country around the world. Stephen Miller also went on to say there a little bit later in that clip that the level of fraud that they have discovered itself is responsible for the deficit that we have within our budget. That if we were able, and that's our goal, to stop all of the fraud and ensure that this never happens again, that every dollar that goes out of the federal coffers is to people who legally are entitled to it, then we would not have a deficit. We would not have a problem with the budget. We would be spending a significantly smaller amount of money every single year. Now, here, J.D. Vance goes over all of the numbers for the last 2 months, and it is not stopping. It's continuing every single day.
Let me just recap for the benefit of our friends in the media. In just 2 months, we exposed billions of dollars in benefits that have been stolen from the American people. We've referred over $22 billion in fraudulent small business loans back to the Treasury for collection. We've deferred more than $1.3 billion in fraudulent Medicaid reimbursements that were coming from various states, particularly California. We put a 6-month hold on enrollments for new hospice and home health care providers because so many of the newer hospice providers were not actually providing hospice services, but were just focused on fraud. So we're going to cut that out for a little bit and try to get to a place where we can actually certify that the people providing hospice services are actually providing those very necessary and important services. We've recovered taxpayer funds from the $135 billion stolen after the floodgates were open in the immediate aftermath of COVID. We have found $6.3 billion in suspected fraudulent government contracts, which were mostly awarded during the last administration, and that has stopped. And finally, we've blocked $60 million in student aid fraud that should have gone to young people trying to get an education, but instead we're going to fraudsters. And I think the theme here of the Anti-Fraud Task Force up to this point has really been that we're protecting two classes of victims here. We're protecting the American taxpayers who shouldn't have their money stolen by fraudsters. And of course, we're protecting the people who need these services.
So the work continues. And I think that the results are self-evident. This is remarkably popular among the people of America. Nobody wants to get ripped off, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, unless you're a communist and then you want to go ahead and rip off the government and everybody else because you believe in wealth redistribution. Those are the only people that are upset about it. But when you take a look at the performance of the two parties, okay, I see something shocking, all right? Number one, nobody is donating to the Democrats. Perhaps more importantly, the Democrats are unable to grift the money that they previously were able to steal. As soon as the federal government stopped the flow of NGO money being siphoned out of Washington, D.C., the coffers of the Democrat Party began to dry up. Now, if we take a look at where the Republicans and the Democrats are today, Republicans have $124 million in cash on hand, and they have zero debt. The Democrats have $14.4 million in cash on hand, and they have $17.5 million in debts, which means that the Democratic National Committee has a net negative of $3.1 million. They have no money. They have no money for which they can spend on campaigns. They have no money with which they can spend on races. And they have no money by which they can steal any longer from the American people. I think that that is a pretty staggering figure. Now, let's move to California and the L.A. mayor's race. Well, they can't pay their debt because they don't have the money. They've got, even if they paid off their debt, they're still going to have negative $3.1 million. So they got to go out and beg people for the money. But nobody wants to give them any money because nobody supports the platform. Certainly not anybody with a brain. Take a look at L.A. L.A. is a perfect example of the Democrat platform in action, the left-wing commie platform in action. So this is a video I actually mentioned to you yesterday. I didn't have it, but this is a woman who did not know anything about Spencer Pratt's platform. She obviously just listens to propaganda media, and she's asked by the man with the camera what she thinks about Spencer and what she thinks about his platform. And then she admits she really, truly knows nothing about Spencer or why he's running or the things that he wants to do to fix the city of Los Angeles. So take a listen to this. It's pretty amazing how quickly she's able to have her mind changed.
I'm not a big fan of Spencer Pratt.
What?
I don't think he's the smartest guy in the world, so I don't think that would be the best position for him.
So, do you know about his platform?
I don't really know. I just know that he's married to Heidi. and all of that, but he sort of got his start on reality TV and was the villain. But
do you know why he decided to run, though?
I don't, actually.
So his house burnt down on the Palisades wildfire, and LA had a very slow response. So a lot of people lost everything.
Okay.
So he ran so that he could help clean up the wildfire preparedness as well as the response time.
Well, that's respectable. I wasn't aware of that.
Have you heard of Skid Row?
Yeah.
Did you know that some of those people are drug users and they're testing their drugs on the dogs to make sure that it's safe for them before they do it?
No.
Spencer Pratt wants to put an end to that. One of his campaign taglines is vote Spencer to save the dogs.
I mean, honestly, I knew none of those things about Spencer Pratt, and that's very honorable, and I would tend to hike him up a bit, I guess.
Yeah, he's trying to address problems that Karen Bass has ignored.
Okay.
And he's trying to come in and fix those specific issues.
Yeah, I mean...
Does that improve your, idea or concept
100%, because I would have thought somebody like him would be more for clout or just to get his name and just for more of a famous type reason, but...
This is opposite of clout.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I would probably sway towards those issues and voting for him.
Wow, I think we just... a little red pill going on here.
I mean, how can you vote against cleaning up the streets, stopping junkies from injecting dogs with fentanyl, stop them from setting dogs on fire, stop drug addicts from setting up homeless camps in front of elementary schools? I mean, all of this stuff is so simple. I mean, like, all you have to do is get past the propaganda mainstream narrative, and people are just like, oh my God, well, of course. Now, that does not hold true for some of the most elite in Hollywood. Drew Carey, I guess, recently came out and had some negative things to say about Spencer Pratt, but Spencer had an excellent comeback. So on Saturday, Price is Right host Drew Carey was in a nasty mood after he saw Spencer just exploding in the polls. And he said that Drew Carey does not consider himself to be a Democrat. He considers himself to be a Republican. And Spencer Pratt is leading in every single poll. Like, he skyrocketed past Bass, past Nithya Raman. It's entirely possible he may get enough votes to just win the race. So anyways, he called Pratt a serial scammer without a soul or moral compass and accused anyone of voting for Pratt for having their heads in their ass. He said anyone who votes for or endorses Spencer Pratt for mayor of LA needs to get their head out of their ass. I understand being angry and unsatisfied, but at least get behind someone competent and not some serial scammer without a soul or moral compass. F this guy already. But it would appear that Drew Carey underestimated the media and pop culture savvy of Spencer Pratt, who continually owns leftists online and politicians when they try to challenge him. So Pratt responded to the attack from Carey with a reminder that he certainly wants to forget, and that would be that Drew Carey is in the Epstein files. Specifically, Jeffrey Epstein, the late pedophile or the removed pedophile, sent an email to his muse, Ghislaine Maxwell, which revealed that he had dinner with Drew Carey and the whole crew from Whose Line Is It Anyways? Jeffrey Epstein writes here, and look, he's writing from a pseudonym, Jeff Davis. Hey, Carol told me you were having some computer troubles, which I guess must be true because my email program says the date you sent your message was 11/15/02. There is no porn site for Mega Jeff, at least that I'm aware of. The only porn you'll get out of me is the occasional dirty email, but the subscription is very expensive. Your ears must have been burning. I was having dinner tonight with Drew Carey and the guys from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And we were talking about our encounter with you. So they all knew Ghislaine Maxwell as well as Jeffrey Epstein. Let me know how things are in New York. Are you keeping warm? Bye, Jeff. And she had said, I have checked out Mega Bob, Mega Pete, Mega John, and Mega Steve. Most illuminating. Can't find the porn site for Mega Jeff. Anyway, Spencer writes, isn't it weird how the two comedians histrionically lashing out against me are both in the Epstein files? What are the odds? Now, the other comedian he's talking about is Chelsea Handler. Chelsea Handler also recently came out and admonished anybody who might support Spencer Pratt. So, yeah, I think it is notable that the people who don't want Spencer Pratt to be elected are also people who are in the Epstein files. Now, let's take a look at another metric. Very similar to how the Democrats are unable to raise funds at the national level, it would appear that Spencer Pratt is raising funds at the city level at rates that are 10 times greater than either Nithya Raman or Karen Bass. Karen Bass, the sitting mayor of Los Angeles, and Nithya Raman, a longtime city council member. So Spencer Pratt currently has raised $2.7 million in 1 month. Karen Bass, during that same time, has raised only $283,000, and Nithya Raman has raised $400,000.
That's far and away above what Karen Bass has done. But I wonder if he needs it, because his social media advertising it's drawn in so much attention. And they call that free media in politics, and you save a lot of money by not doing it. I want to move to another story about that's far and
And obviously, the posts and the people making videos on his behalf have had an incredible, incredible effect. He and his team made this video and put it out yesterday. It's a long video, but we are going to watch the whole thing because it's so good. All right, so Spencer posts, people ask me, how can we fix LA? We don't have the money. And he says, we have the money. It's just being stolen. You want to fix the budget? End the fraud. I will bust the scammers and put your tax dollars back to work for you. Take a listen.
The number one question that everybody has for me when they hear my plan is, how can we do that, Spencer? We don't have the money. Where is the money? Let me clue you in on a little secret. We have the money. It's just being stolen. You pay countless tax dollars. You're taxed on your income. You're taxed on your gas. You're taxed on your property. You're taxed out Every single expensive transaction you endure is taxed. Yes, hundreds of restaurants have shut their doors thanks to Karen Bass and Nithya Raman. Businesses are fleeing their terrible leadership, so revenue is decreasing, and I will turn that around. But we have plenty of money in this city. It's just being stolen. Our streets are a mess. Every day people pop tires. Their suspension is shot, all because our streets are left in utter neglect and disrepair.
Potholes can cause some pretty costly car repairs.
One pothole damaged as many as 10 cars.
More than a dozen vehicles damaged, many with blown out tires.
Both of my tires on the passenger side just blew out completely.
And the bent of my rim, I think bent my lower control arm.
Resident Francisco Garcia collected these hubcaps, evidence of the overnight damage.
The average cost of a pothole-related car repair is about $600, and it's something 1 in 10 drivers have to deal with.
We have not invested in our infrastructure, and this is the consequences.
These are beyond just potholes that have busted open under the negligence of Karen Bass. These are bass holes. But people ask, how can we fix the bass holes? We don't have the money. We do have the money. It's just being stolen. I met with the truckers who used to do this work for over 100 years for LA, paving our roads until Karen Bass came in.
The city hasn't repaved a single street since last July. They say the city's own data shows 0 miles resurfaced this past fiscal year, and the draft budget proposes 0 miles in the new year.
We're just completely failing at the most basic services at this point, keeping people safe and keeping our streets functional.
They used to do 600 miles of paving before Karen canceled their federal contract, and now the city just does 60 miles of paving. Also, now Karen Bass only does a fraction of the bass hole repairs that they did before her. Why? Well, in her first year as mayor, she stole the $100 million contract that the federal government gave to these truckers and gave the money to NGOs profiting off of the homeless drug addicts. We have the money, it's just being stolen. What about public safety? We have less firefighters today than we had in the 1960s, and yet the population of LA has doubled. But people ask, how can we hire more firefighters? We don't have the money. We do have the money. It's just being stolen. Right now, LAFD engines are so overwhelmed with responding to overdoses and rubbish fires, medicals, and arson fires coming entirely from the addicts on our streets. Because of Karen Bass' policies with the city attorney, LAFD has to send out an ambulance and a Type 1 engine to every overdose, every sprained ankle, every toothache. They are sending those big red trucks that you see fighting fires, all to shove Narcan up a homeless guy's nose. Those engines chew up about 30 gallons of diesel going on unnecessary runs.
If it calls for stub toe, toothaches, we do it all. Whatever it is, we're here.
Being a paramedic, we're the busiest resource on the fire department. I go on 15 to 20 runs a day. There's only 24 hours in a day, so if you're going on 20 calls, you guys do the math.
Across the department, we're wasting over $7 million every year on wasted fuel, not to mention all the wear and tear and extra miles on these engines that should have been retired to Mexico 10 years ago that are now breaking down, crashing, leaving us all in danger. Before the Palisades fire, the fire chief warned Karen Bass that they were dangerously underfunded and unable to keep Angelino safe. What did Karen Bass do? She cut the fire department budget by $17 million and gave it to, you guessed it, NGOs profiting off homeless drug addicts.
Budget cuts have, quote, severely limited the department's capacity to prepare for, train for, and respond to large-scale emergencies, including wildfires. You sent that warning about these budget cuts. We had a team on the ground, a crew there, and witnessed a number of homes burned to the ground, and there was not a fire truck in sight. How did that happen?
When there's a $17 million cut in our budget, operating costs, immediately from that point, I had to make some tough decisions.
Would that $17 million that had been cut from your budget have made a difference in this fight?
Yes, so I would say yes, we were limited to a certain factor, yes. We did exactly what we could with what we had.
We have the money, it's just being stolen. People ask, how can we treat the homeless? We don't have the money. We do have the money. It's just being stolen. Karen Bass and Nithya Raman have sunk billions of dollars into the homeless problem, but it's all being wasted on dubious NGOs that increase drug use, hand out needles and crack pipes, and actually give drugs to the addicts on the streets of LA. A developer bought a property for homeless housing at $11 million. Days later, the city paid him $27.3 million. A $16 million flip. No new carpets, no pool addition, just straight up fraud.
This is a property flip in West LA in the neighborhood of Cheviot Hills that was highlighted in a federal prosecutor criminal indictment announcement, actually, in this investor, Stephen Taylor, who purchased a property in West LA, purchased it for $11 million. He was at the same time selling it to Weingart Center for $27 million, financed by taxpayers. The appraisal used to justify the price had inaccurate information. There was inaccurate information about the ownership of the property. And we also found that Mayor Bass's office, there was some emails from the city indicating that her office was had a big role in the selection of this property.
And this is just one of the many projects that needs to be audited and investigated.
A prominent homeless service provider, the Weingart Center, has been awarded over $100 million in taxpayer funds despite years of failing to comply with federal audit mandates.
When we asked the state controller's office, they say they don't review audits from nonprofits at all.
We have the money. It's just being stolen. As your mayor, I will get your damn money back. I will audit every city program. Every department is going to show us all of their books. We will have forensic auditors come in and track down every last dollar. We have the money. It's just being stolen. It's like the inverse Robin Hood. Government is stealing from you and making themselves rich.
No.
Money that could go to lowering your rent, cleaning your streets, keeping you safe. You paid it. It's your tax money. It should be working for you. Pratt Man is coming to get it back.
So freaking good. I mean, everything that he's saying is obviously the truth. And so, you know, there's a couple of things that we have to account for. First of all, it's California. California has been traditionally one of the markets that really pioneered the modern mail-in voting fraud scheme. The voter rolls in California are completely locked up with ineligible voters, dead people, duplicate voters. They've already started sending out ballots. People are getting ballots in the mail for people that don't live at their homes. So there is ample opportunity for the election to be stolen. If the election is going to be held in a legitimate fashion, Spencer Pratt has a real chance. The people who live in Los Angeles have a question that they need to ask themselves. Are they willing to take a gamble on electing the same old thing that they've had for decades? Because the only thing that they can be guaranteed is that the problems they have now are going to remain and they will compound. If they want to try something different, then they have an opportunity to do that with Spencer Pratt. From all of the polling, at the very minimum, if the election is held today, then Spencer Pratt would be number 2, although that doesn't account for people who are simply afraid to answer in the affirmative that they're going to be voting for Spencer Pratt. But the number of people who were undecided in recent polling, as late as last month, 51% of respondents were undecided as to who they were going to vote for. The number of undecided voters has shrunk to below 10% now, and Spencer Pratt is number 2. Karen Bass is still showing at number 1. In some polls, she is actually less than Spencer Pratt. So we'll see what happens. The election is coming up here in a couple of days. I think it's about a week. So I hope that people vote for Spencer Pratt, and I hope that he does exactly what he says he's going to do, and I hope that we can make L.A. and California great again. So we'll see what happens. Next. We also have what may appear to be a problem for Karen Bass. Spencer Pratt has suggested that Karen Bass is engaging in electioneering, and she actually recorded video of herself doing it, and it was released by her campaign. So what we have here is evidence from Spencer Pratt putting together clips of Karen Bass's campaign events where Karen Bass is actually engaging in campaigning within 100 feet of a ballot box. That is electioneering. That is against the law. And Spencer Pratt is filing an ethics complaint against Karen Bass in her campaign.
Hello, everybody. All right. We're on the countdown.
I'm sorry, I just realized that I was muted on YouTube. I'm reading the claims against Karen Bass. What good are these provisions if not enforced? Angelenos deserve better, and we respectfully insist that you not only investigate these clear violations of the law, but prosecute these infractions to the highest degree. She is engaging in campaign activities within 100 feet of a ballot drop box and actually filming herself dropping off ballots and having these people hold signs right next to the drop box.
On the countdown, just one more week. One more week. Let me just thank you so much for all of your support. I know you have been walking precincts, you've been making phone calls, you've been over there at the headquarters, because we're gonna bring this to home base and win, right? I even have the babies on my side. Babies for Bass. All right. You're never too young. Hi, Joy.
Trans babies for Bass.
Thank you. Babies for Bass.
All right, now the Bass campaign has responded and basically just said, we didn't do it. So we'll see what they have to say about it. Let me say thank you very much to Sean Joe for the cookie. Thank you to Jay for the cookie. Thank you to Filter Dog. Machines down after a system bug in Fort Bend County, Texas. All voting centers were impacted. The systems went down county-wide. That's right. Today is the runoff election in Texas, and it looks that Ken Paxton is going to be successful, but it wouldn't be an election in modern-day America if something didn't happen with the election machines. The floor is yours. Who says, Zach Q, I believe you said that the fraud is so bad that the military is going to have to shut down a lot of the government because there's too much. It's everywhere, and the only way to clean it is the military. Do you guys remember? I don't think I've ever said that, but yeah, I don't think that's necessary for the military to just come in and take everything over. I think that that's the opposite of what President Trump would want to do. You know, that's reminiscent to what a lot of people wanted President Trump to do back in 2020. Certainly, I think that the fraud is bad, but I don't think that it's necessary for the military to, like, take over the country. I think that that would be the last thing that President Trump would do. There may need to be martial law or something declared like that if we have a series of coordinated terrorist attacks around the country. I have talked about the potential of something like that happening, you know, such as going back to the early portion of the administration when we had a National Guard being deployed to various cities around the country. We're not really there right now. Things have quieted down significantly, but it is starting to heat up at another facility, and we are going to talk about that in just a moment. But I think that, honestly, what they're doing with the fraud task force, you know, having a new sector in the DOJ that focuses exclusively on going after the fraud, I think that that's bearing some pretty awesome results. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. I appreciate that. All right. Now, here is actually, that is what we just talked about. But we are going to stick with California because we've got 2 examples of the state government of California engaging with illegal aliens in a way that they would never engage with you. So U.S. Attorney Bill Laetrile has exposed a plot by which California is giving illegal aliens taxpayer-funded homes. Now, this is being done because so many citizens are fleeing the state of California because they see how bad things are, and they essentially have lost all hope that things can be fixed. So, former California Assemblyman and current top federal prosecutor Bill Laetrile has exposed Sacramento's radical open borders agenda during this recent interview with PragerU. Now, Bill Laetrile is unique because he's the son of lawful immigrants. They came to the United States of America. They did everything by the book. And so he's got a dog in this fight, calling out the way that the left has deliberately refused to use the word illegal. They say undocumented. They call them migrants instead of illegal aliens. And that's because they don't want to distinguish between these 2 groups of people. They obviously just want people from other places coming to the U.S. all being part of the same group, even though they're radically different types of people. We've got those who follow the rules, who actually adhere to the law. And then we've got people who come here because they want to exploit the weaknesses, the so-called public servants who refuse to enforce the law. Those illegal aliens come here and they actually reinforce the power of those public servants who do not enforce the law. Now, Laetrile, his parents came here legally. They took the citizenship test. They built a life the correct way, and he didn't hold back in making remarks that perfectly capture the rage of millions of Americans who were tired of being treated as second-class citizens. All across America, people see the way that illegal aliens are treated, and it feels like there's nothing special about being an American citizen. That if you want to survive, if you want to thrive in the United States of America, well, all you had to do was come here, not follow the rules, and just be an illegal alien, and they hand you everything that you could possibly want. So let me see. I think we have a clip of Bill actually discussing this. Yes, here we go. So this is Bill talking about this plot by the state government in California, Sacramento. So they basically were giving free down payments on homes to illegal aliens. And they're doing this to replace the population of California residents who have fled the state. This is a program that came out of California Assembly Bill 1840. It was passed by the Democrat-controlled state legislature in 2024, and it was going to expand the eligibility for the California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program to these illegal aliens. So the program offers qualifying first-time homebuyers shared appreciation assistance for down payments and closing costs. Gavin Newsom actually vetoed the bill because they have limited funding, but he didn't have any opposition to the plot itself. Take a listen.
I think one of the most offensive things, my parents are immigrants. They immigrated here lawfully. There's a lot of immigrants in California. The president's wife is an immigrant. And they never mention the word illegal. They always say immigrant community. And I just find that particularly offensive, especially for people like my parents who did it the right way. They came here, they took the citizenship exam. I remember my mom studying for the test and learning about the branches of government, everything. They never want to distinguish between legal and illegal immigrants. And I find that particularly offensive. But you're right. The dirty little secret is they want the flow of illegal immigrants. It fuels, well, you could talk about it politically, why for census reporting and other reasons, states like California need that population inflow because everyone else is getting out of the state. And then when you go to Sacramento, this is like the protected, oppressed group of the day. And so all their bills every day is like, how do we protect illegal immigrants? How do we get more lawyers for them? How do we get them more services? How do we get them free down payment assistance to buy a home? I'm not joking. That was a bill when I was in Sacramento. They wanted to allow illegal immigrants to access down payment assistance to buy a home. I was like, how do they even get a loan? You know, and apparently you can get a loan with a TIN number, which I found out. But again, people like my mom, she's not getting down payment assistance. She's not getting all these things. She's working.
Yes, the legal immigrants and the actual Americans are not getting that type of assistance.
Correct.
But the assistance is given to people who committed a crime to get here.
Correct.
And of course, Democrats will tell you that it's a civil infraction. It's not really a crime. It's a crime. It's a crime, and it needs to be treated as such. Now, here is another scam that California actually successfully implemented. California spends millions of dollars every year on a program that provides free solar panels. Wow, that's awesome. Also gives out free refrigerators. It also gives out free windows if you are considered low-income farm workers, which of course includes illegal immigrants. This initiative is called the Farm Worker Housing Component of the Low-Income Weatherization Program. It's part of California's sprawling multi-billion-dollar cap-and-trade system. So they trade carbon producers and then redistribute about $3 billion per year to energy programs and left-wing social causes. And it's all under the banner of fighting climate change. Totally gay. So since 2019, California's government has earmarked $49 million for the farm worker program. It operates with this sort of opaque web that includes government agencies, non-governmental agencies, and nonprofit providers, and then even private contractors. So California's Department of Community Services and Development selected a group called La Cooperativa Campesina de California. It's a nonprofit. They serve farm workers to administer this program. And La Cooperativa, in turn, partners with a for-profit, minority-owned company called Maroma Energy Services, and then they help them run the program. So through this program, contractors do the work of installing solar panels and other appliances such as the ones I mentioned above. These organizations have heavily advertised this program to California's roughly 900,000 agricultural workers. Now, of course, half to three-quarters of those people are illegal immigrants. In the official documentation, California's Department of Community Services and Development acknowledges that non-citizens are, in fact, eligible for the program, and they even accept identification from foreign governments. They also have Spanish-language radio broadcasts where Natalie Valores, who is a program manager from Maroma, confirms that participants do not need any legal status in the United States, and they can use a matricular consular. That's a common form of identification that the Mexican consulate provides to illegals who have crossed the border. They just apply for it, and the consulate gives it to them. Now, we only require an ID, she said. It doesn't need to be from this state or even from the United States. People who qualify for this program work to loop laborers into the system. The companies who are profiting from this program, offering these services, also work very hard to get people into the system and have them apply. You've got a contractor for John Harrison Contracting. It's a California-based minority business enterprise, and the farm worker housing co-op component subcontractor. They would drive hundreds of miles a day across Southern California looking to persuade farm workers to sign up for the program. One challenge was to convince workers that the program was not a scam. The other challenge, after the Trump administration increased ICE raids, was finding potential clients because many of them just stopped showing up at job sites. Maroma Customer Service has spoken to the authors of this article at City Journal, and they confirm the company has provided solar panels for illegal immigrants. You don't need to have documentation. They ask for their pay stub and a form of their income, and of course their gas and electricity bill. Now, despite this $49 million budget and nearly 7 years of operation, the California Farm Worker Weatherization Program has only provided these services to 2,000 families. That means the state of California has allocated roughly $23,000 per household for this program to provide free solar panels, free refrigerators, and a variety of other services, a number that raises a lot of concern about financial accountability. One problem is that there is a single man who seems to be connected to most of the entities involved in this program. His name is Mauricio Blanco, and Blanco worked as a project manager for La Cooperativa Campesina de California. They have been awarded at least $10.7 million by the state of California. He's also currently listed as an executive for Morona Energy Services. They've been granted nearly $34 million from La Cooperativa for these weatherization services since 2017. He's also the CEO of John Harrison Contracting, which is a firm that appears to have done most of the solar installation work. Now, he was asked for a comment for this article, but he decided not to say anything. The California Department of Community Services was sent an extensive list of questions for the story, and a spokesperson told the authors that a farm worker housing component helps vulnerable and disadvantaged communities keep their homes temperate year-round, and they have saved the equivalent of more than 20,000 metric tons of carbon, and they contribute to the state's climate investment and priority population goals. But he did not deny that the program is essentially serving illegal aliens. So the gentleman in question, Mr. Blanco, appears to be centrally located to grift as much money out of this this fund as he possibly can. It should be no surprise when you see all of the fraud that takes place in California. Let me say thank you to CK Felt. Please ask everyone in East Tennessee to come support Katie's Cookies at the Smoky Mountain Harley-Davidson Hog Rally in Maryville tomorrow, through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. All right. CK Felt also says, I have sent pics in this time to your email. All right. Awesome. Let me see if I can get that pulled up. You guys, if you're going to be in East Tennessee now or tomorrow through Saturday, go support Katie's Cookies at the Smoky Mountain Harley-Davidson Hog Rally in Maryville, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. All right. And thank you, Zach. I brought cookies to Gart. Oh, I remember these cookies. These are damn good cookies, you guys. Yes, and I'm going to try to send some for Deadwood. I also made the Badlands sugar cookies for the previous Gart. Thank you for the support of my small business. Awesome. Yeah, no, that's so cool. Okay, let me hold this up in a tab so that I can show the audience. Open image in a new tab. Open image in a new tab. All right, guys. So here is Katie's Cookies right here. You're going to look for this sign and you're, oh my God, I want some of these Yeti snacks. Yeti's Snow Snack. They look like, what do you call it? Puppy chow. Looks like fancy puppy chow. Oh my gosh, and you've also got Yeti feet, it looks like. This is right up my alley. Yeah, I remember these cookies, and they are damn good. Oh, and you also have like a regular old Yeti. Look at this. You guys, if you're going to be there, support Katie's Cookies and go pick up some stuff. She and her family look like total patriots, and these cookies are damn good. Yeti MAGA. I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Katie's Cookies. This is at the Smoky Mountain Harley-Davidson Hog Rally in Maryville tomorrow through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Appreciate you. Oh, yeah, these are good cookies. Want to get some of those. Yeah, do me a favor. If you can bring some of those Yeti snow snacks with you to Gart as well, I would absolutely mow on them. That looks good. Anything Yeti related, I will be all about. Thank you so much. All right. We have another issue with California. The situation related to California fraud. So some more information on exactly how the California Medicaid fraud operated. One thing that these people will do is they will essentially buy a hospice company that doesn't have any customers or has few customers, but has been an established business for quite a long time. But then they're also buying fake IDs from people who have had their identities stolen. They'll go on the dark web and then buy them and then have the identification for a person who lives out of state become the owner of this business. So then that makes it much more difficult to trace exactly who is responsible for the fraudulent activity. Now, the California Medi-Cal system has let these fake companies bill over $267 million in fake services. It's proven, this is not speculative, 100%, $267 million was fraudulently stolen from the California Medi-Cal system. You've got 21 suspects already charged across 3 criminal complaints, all of them charged with healthcare fraud, all of them charged with identity theft, and all of them charged with money laundering. So this is what they would do. The fraudsters, oftentimes organized criminal gangs, would purchase these shell hospice companies. They would then buy legitimate-looking but often dormant or failing hospice businesses that were in Los Angeles. They would then buy stolen identities from the dark web for people outside of the state of California, and then they would use these stolen identities to enroll these fake patients into Medi-Cal, which is covered through the state of California. They would then, of course, submit the claims for hospice services that would never be provided. You had no patients that were actually receiving care. Of course, in order to have these fake clients, they would also have to purchase the stolen Medi-Cal numbers from the dark web as well. Then they would funnel the money into over 130 other unique shell companies, and then they would use cryptocurrencies to obscure the funds. Medi-Cal has got looser verification processes for these out-of-state enrollments, and that means that likely they knew exactly what was going on. They intentionally made the process easier for fraud to take place, and I would imagine that there were a lot of kickbacks that were going on.
At this office building in Glendale, no one answered the door when we knocked Thursday. Arnie Magno runs a home care business a few doors down.
I've seen a lot of males in front of their door.
According to court papers, a business listed at the address here is part of a hospice fraud operation, targeting 14 companies and a billing service. State Attorney General Rob Bonta says the scheme siphoned about $267 million of taxpayer money.
Now, that $267 million is the floor, because obviously they haven't finished their investigations into California. Still waiting to see who else is going to be arrested. And, you know, I mean, the real tragedy of this is that the elderly people who have their Medicare numbers stolen and then used for these fraudulent services they're likely going to run into problems when they try to actually go cash in on their benefits for themselves at some point in the future. Haven't really heard anything about how they're going to be dealing with that. All right, now we are going to talk about the situation currently taking place in Newark, New Jersey at the ICE facility. We briefly mentioned it yesterday, but there has been some significant updates. Before we do that, I have a very quick message from our friends over on Rumble. You guys, I'm sure that you are aware of crypto. People hear a lot about crypto, but one of the most important aspects of crypto that they miss is that the concept of cryptocurrency was created so that you could actually control and own your own money. Because after the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So then instead of a bank holding onto your money, maybe delaying transfers or limiting access to your funds, It puts you in control of that money. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, or you've been told that you couldn't get your money out, you have felt this problem directly. So fast forward to today, 2026. Pretty much everybody's heard about crypto, but you might not have actually gotten started in crypto because maybe it feels complicated. But this is why Rumble Wallet is great, because it takes all the complexity out of it. It makes it very simple. You choose what you want to do. If you want to buy Bitcoin, you want to buy dollar-backed stable coins, or maybe you just want to hold digital gold backed by real gold. You can do all of them. It's not complicated to set up. It connects directly to your Rumble account, and then you connect with MoonPay, so you can use your bank card, your debit card, or your bank account. You're up and running in just a few minutes. And then once you get set up, you can even support your favorite creators on Rumble, either me or somebody else. And in order to get started, just use your phone to scan that QR code on screen, or you can click the link that you're going to see in the description or in the chat, and you can easily download the Rumble wallet. And from there, you just set up the wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Thank you very much, and appreciate the support. All right. Now, thank you to G. Fontes, who says, is there any way to see if there is a relation to Griselda Blanco? Oh, you're talking about the cocaine cowboys, the White Widow, or whatever she was known as, Colombian that lived in New York, Florida, and California after some prison time after being high up in the Florida cocaine cowboys enterprise. So, I mean, I suppose that there is a way to determine that. Obviously, it would take a little bit of investigation, but I don't know how common the name Blanco is. Let me see. Well, you know, I will keep that on the back burner. I'll do a little bit of research, and I'll see if that guy is potentially related to that Blanco. Is Rumble Wallet regulated by the FDIC? If not, that's a plus. So, no, I mean, I don't believe that they are. The FDIC is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. That's for banks. And there are certain crypto wallets that have FDIC insurance and protection, but I have never seen anything related to the FDIC in terms of the Rumble wallet. And I, you know, again, somebody had mentioned that, you know, I know that when you purchase a Rumble rant using the app, Apple takes a cut of that rant before it gets delivered to the person. When you are sending transactions through the Rumble wallet, that is very different. It's a direct person-to-person crypto transaction. When somebody has sent me Rumble wallet transactions, it's the full amount of the transaction. It's not, they don't take an amount out of it like they do in Apple, like a transaction through the app on the Apple App Store. So pretty sure that it is exactly as we thought it was. All right, so yesterday, rioters began obstructing ICE actions at this facility in New Jersey. There was a story that inmates were on a hunger strike and that they were trying to take over the facility. The White House later on had dismissed that story as fake news, said nobody's on a hunger strike. They haven't taken over the facility. Everything's fine. But it sure did appear that rioters outside of the facility had essentially taken it over. I mean, they were obstructing the efforts of law enforcement operations. They were setting up barriers in the road. And yesterday, it just looked like ICE was allowing these people to do what they wanted to do. But it also now appears that they were simply allowing them to incriminate themselves. Take a look.
This is McAdams. She's live right now outside Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey, where those protesters there, Lexus, have been facing off with some of the ICE agents. What's happening?
That's right. Well, it has been going on for a few days, and then it happened again this morning, and it's happening again throughout the afternoon. So we're just going to move in on a little bit and show you what's going on out here. You can see that they've got the protesters that are sitting here, and I thought it was important to point out a lot of them actually had their faces kind of covered, but the big deal here, right, in New Jersey is that these people don't think ICE agents should be able to cover their faces. So that's one thing. But they're facing off with these ICE officers who are trying to do their job, Sandra, because they believe that this detention facility here, Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey, should be shut down. They say it's because the migrants inside of the facility are not being treated right. So that's why they're out here. That's why they're positioned here with their goggles on, ready to be tear gassed or pepper sprayed, they say, if possible. So pointing it out, obviously we covered what happened on the ground in Minneapolis. We covered that in Minnesota. We covered a little bit of what happened in Broadview, Illinois, outside of Chicago. That's a more similar setup to what happened here. So they have not as big a crowds, but the people do come prepared. And one of the other things, Sandra, that was important to point out on video that we saw yesterday on social media was they kind of stop all these cars that are coming and going. And the protesters are trying to act as security in those videos, asking them who's in the car, and then they decide if they're going to let you through or not. And then here you can see some media, but they are blocking the roadway. And this backs up a huge road that's right off the highway. So it really could cause a lot of problems here. So we'll keep an eye on it. But the governor of New Jersey was out here celebrating Memorial Day by demanding that the migrant criminals inside be released because she says they're on a hunger strike. So we'll keep an eye on it, Sandra.
Totally ridiculous. This facility is not going to get shut down. You know, the only thing that's going to happen is that these people are likely going to be arrested, and I certainly hope that they are. Now, a Democrat senator, Andy Kim, was one of those people in attendance. He was actually pepper sprayed yesterday. And instead of spending Memorial Day honoring the fallen troops, Mr. Kim joined the rioters attacking law enforcement. He was there alongside New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill, Representatives Rob Menendez, and your favorite loudmouthed New Jersey soon-to-be felon, LaMonica McIver, also Nellie Pooh. I'm not familiar with her. So these rioters were seen vandalizing the city. They were taking out large blocks from the sidewalks and then using them to set up barricades outside of the Delaney Hall Detention Center. And in multiple clips, we're going to watch a couple, they were seen searching through vehicles with flashlights. They were quite literally acting as if they were Gestapo themselves. Let me pull up and I can show you exactly how crazy things were getting. We do have some footage here of people getting knocked down on their asses. That's always fun to see. Now, Kim was seen at one point attempting to negotiate with these people, the protesters, asking them to stop throwing things at vehicles and to clear a path in the parking lot, and then apologizing to them after it was clear that they didn't want to be civil. So pepper spray and pepper balls were deployed after a series of clashes with the ICE agents and with the rioters. Kim was seen screaming at agents as an armored truck passed by, and then he was seen having water poured into his eyes afterwards. I think that likely he wanted to be seen as some type of a martyr for these protesters, but really he just got himself all kinds of effed up. So there was these people were literally digging up chunks of concrete out of the street. They were setting up these barricades. They had brought out, they had somehow gotten actual barricades from like construction sites and stuff like that. And that was yesterday. But then today, the ICE agents actually brought in a dump truck, and they just loaded everything up and threw it all away. So now the barricades are no more, and it looks like some people have been arrested, but I don't know how many. But this really angered all of the protesters, having their stuff removed, and they don't want to allow these guys to come and go, but they really don't have any choice. They can stand in the way and they can get run over. But let's take a look at LaMonica McIver. LaMonica McIver doing her usual best to just be a loudmouthed broad.
You're not Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, who was charged with assaulting a federal officer during a similar stunt at Delaney Hall last year, was there. She posted yesterday, "I am back at Delaney Hall with members of our New Jersey delegation and Governor Sherrill. I'm talking to advocates and families, inspecting the facility and demanding justice. We've seen the inhumane conditions, heard reports of abuse, and there's one right option: shut down Delaney Hall."
That is not going to happen. And all of those reports of so-called bad conditions in the facility are incorrect. Mark Wayne Mullen said this is nothing more than a political stunt by New Jersey sanctuary politicians for fundraising clicks. There is no hunger strike at Delaney Hall. New Jersey sanctuary politicians chose to spend their Memorial Day weekend smearing ICE law enforcement. They should be thanking our law enforcement for removing these murderers, pedophiles, rapists, and drug traffickers from their state. And there was also a hilarious moment where a couple of brown-skinned people left the facility, and the protesters started cheering because they thought that they had been successful, and that the facility was forced to allow these poor browns to leave the facility. But the only problem is these were actually guys who worked there.
Opening!
They work here! They work here! I'm a Trump lover. They work here! That's all Trump lover. That's racist. They just assume. Damn!
They work there, you morons! They just thought because they were brown and they were leaving the facility, they must have been captured by ICE. But obviously, these people are stupid. See Me Too says, Zach is the best. I don't even know where to get this news anymore. They bury it so deep. See Me Too, thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate you. Also, Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. Trump 1 says, every city needs their own Spencer Pratt. Great awakening worldwide. I am with you. Filter Dog says, Netanyahu hospitalized. I saw that yesterday. I haven't heard anything more about it other than to say that he was hospitalized, that he went to a hospital. I don't know if he was hospitalized or if he went there for routine care. Filter Dog also has given Brad's link. We are going to be sending you to Brad's show here in just a moment when I finish up. Very close to the end. Here, I wanted to show you another image of ICE agents dragging some of these leftist protesters from the scene.
These people are human beings, and they deserve to be with their families. These people are human beings. Yes, thank you. Thank you for standing up for humanity. Thank you for standing up for humanity.
Oh, these loud-mouthed broads. I can't stand them. Now, basically, she just stands there and yells. She's got a couple of other friends there doing the same thing. Blah, blah, blah. What I hope doesn't happen is that we have another prolonged episode where these protesters take over the streets and ICE just stands there being nice to them before they're allowed to basically slow down operations, because we don't have time for that shit. Bandits of Bacon, that was the first thing that I covered, basically, was the gerrymandered districts. Yes. So go ahead and rewind the show. All right, you guys. That is it. We are going to go ahead and call it there, and I'm going to send you guys over to Brad and Abby. I had 2 stories that I think I'll save for tomorrow. But thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with us. I do appreciate you. I will go ahead and pass out these gold pills, and then I am going to send you over to Brad and Abby over on Pilled, and then I will also send you to, let me set that raid up right now. Okay, raid is set up on Pilled. And then I will set the raid up over on Rumble here. Let me do that before we do. If you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, whatever it might be. AOB22 says, sources close to the matter say Zach always brings the news. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And congratulations on your membership over there, subscription on Rumble. Now, in case you don't know where to find Brad and you are on Rumble, his channel is Where We Go, the number 1, We Go All. Where we go 1, we go all. And let me see. Setting up the raid right now. /raid. Enter. Boom. Confirm. All right, guys. Good luck. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow right here at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. One final thank you. What was the guy's name you were talking about? Michael Blanco. That's her only surviving son, and his kids aren't easily found any notoriety. Okay, let me go back to right here. If it is him, then that is Crazy. Mauricio Blanco. I'll dive into this tonight, G. Fontez, and we'll put this together. All right, you guys. See you tomorrow. Have fun over with Brad. Peace.